Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Meike Ziegler, thank you for coming here to Berlin Business School of Innovation. And today in the Café Artistique, we are going to talk about creativity. Surprise? And what when the creativity is starting to be your job. Meike Ziegler, she was a designer, and we will talk about that because something happened in her life and she decided to change because designing started to be a little bit boring for her, and she decided to be a ritual designer. So I think that she is the only one person in the whole world that is designing rituals. Sounds maybe a little bit like magic. For me too, when I met her for the first time, it was like, what is this? But there is lots of stories behind that. And these rituals can be designed almost for everyone and for every organization. So this is what we are going to talk about today. Thank you, Meike, once more. And maybe we start with I start with the introduction, but maybe you can tell us something more about yourself. Who you are and what is your life about?
Thank you, Monika, for inviting me. Meike Ziegler is my name. I was born in London, but my both parents are Dutch. So am I Dutch? I don't know. But I traveled a lot. My father is a city planner, so we went to Australia for 4 years. Egypt, 3 years. Indonesia, we traveled. During my first 12 years, I was living in different cultures, different religions, I had many friends in different countries and went to different schools. And I must say this was a fundament or foundation for what I do today. Then I worked in very commercial backgrounds in America as a brand creative director in the .com world. I studied graphic design, like you said. Multimedia design, and then I was also very intrigued by, I call myself a little bit a witch sometimes, as in Australia as a small child I used to have my little mixing table and my mom would give me some beans and dried spaghettis and I'd work with nature, and it started a long time ago, I must say. But working in this very commercial world, also being fascinated by shamanism, working in nature, creating sculptures in nature. I'm also a sculptor. All these different paths came together at some point, and this was a specific moment in my life that something horrible happened to me. I lost a child, and I wanted to give meaning, or I wanted to give something to this child. 8 months pregnancy was cut off, and I created a ritual. And this was so powerful for me, my husband, and I somehow, by doing this ritual, creative ritual I call it, it healed me, and it gave me also extremely much inspiration. Mm-hmm. I call it the birth of a new consciousness. And there, suddenly I started seeing things differently. And I still kept designing, but at some point I thought, if I bring this commercial design, this branding, this shamanism, this wanting to create more meaning together, I could create something new. Mm-hmm. Plus I was also not so happy about all this competition in the world I was in. And I thought if I create my own product, I might be able to be a pioneer in this, and I guess I am.
Now, rituals are very important in our lives. Like, if you think about yourself, like, you know, if you just like take a few seconds and think about the rituals, we are having rituals in our everyday life that we are repeating from the morning, how we are getting up during the day and how we go sleep. And there are also like more meaningful rituals in our life, so coming from our religion or our culture. But you are bringing something new, some new meaning, and you are creating these creative rituals. I mean, like, we know each other for a very long time, so I almost know by heart all of her rituals. I mean, maybe you can tell something about the one that you like the most, that are just the most meaningful for you.
Wow, that's difficult. I have quite some favorites. I must say I started with the ritual for my own child, and then for a wedding, and for a birth, funerals, the rites of passage that we, in the Western world we live in, don't have so much. Yeah, we have birthdays and we have weddings, but I like to break patterns and move minds to create something new in a moment where we have rituals. That's why I call it a creative ritual. There's a lot of ritual design in the world, but creative rituals, as I call it, Creatuals, is, I think, quite unique. A favorite one, wow. I once brought a whole group of people to an island in Holland, and they asked me, the client asked me to do something with happiness. I always need a question. I always need a problem or something to give answer to. So I get an assignment and I answer to it with a ritual. And we went to this island, and about 150 people were listening to a story, a bit Roald Dahl, if you know who he is, a surrealistic story about a director of a butterfly factory. This doesn't exist, but you know. And everyone was listening to this, and after the story, they stood up and went into this fortification on the island, and I asked them to write on a strip of plastic with special bark ink their happiness, or their true happiness, or their true luck. And then they had to dip it into a test tube of rainwater, and they got this around their neck, and it had a number, and they came to this beautiful space with a cabinet, and I will show you, where they were allowed to baptize a butterfly cocoon with their luck elixir or happiness elixir. And I brought this cabinet back home with all of them sort of baptized or sprinkled with this water of all these people, and the butterflies started coming out. And this was a very magical moment. Now I put all these little things here, and I will show a little bit to the camera. Here you see.
So in this case, this creative ritual was used for the, let's say, commercial use for the company. And when I'm thinking about that, it's that you can have this, let's say, very simple, you know, like usual integration of the people who are working for the company. They're going somewhere, having party, a meeting, you know, dancing, or you can have something like that. So let's say this ritual was like a little bit commercial, let's say. It was done for the commercial company. But you were also working with the soap and another company that asked you to design the creative ritual.
True. For Unilever, we all know these big multinationals. They had worked with another company on their purpose, a new purpose. And they asked me to do the launch of the purpose. So I had 70 marketing directors and all directors together that were going to launch this purpose. And I asked them to scratch in a piece of soap, because if you know, Unilever started with margarine and soap. And I thought, okay, let's them write in a piece of soap their own purpose or their own intention. And we put this in a big pan, and it all melted with all these words, and in groups they talked about this. And then I had a huge mold, a table, where we poured in all the soap mixed with all these words, and then I asked them to write their purpose line in the soap with a blue ink. And it was the purpose line, we create social warming. This was something they had come up with. And we made blocks of the soap, and everyone got a piece of soap to wash their hands. Yeah, there's always different interpretations that I can give. Unilever washing hands. But they all took a very nicely branded, packaged piece of soap home, and we had very nice towels with embroidered UP, Unilever purpose. So it was also commercial, but a way to connect. I always say Creatuals is about the art of human connection. I create the framework, I create the story, the concept, but that's just the framework. And the people who participate, they fill it with meaning. So people bring something. Very famous story of my grandmother, who was 96, when she died, very old woman, another beautiful picture of her, she was always wearing this pearl necklace, always. And I'd go and see her in the home where she was living, and she knew everything about the family of members, about my aunts and uncles and cousins, and she would tell me the stories, and I would be up to date after visiting my grandmother. When she died, as a Creatual, I asked my father to give me the pearl necklace, and at the funeral I held it up and I said, this was for me Oma, my grandma. This symbolized her. She was the thread and we were her pearls, and she kept us together. She was the connector of the family, but she's no longer here. So I cut it, and the pearls fell in a bowl, and the thread with the medallion I put in a bag, and I attached it to the coffin, and it went down with Oma in the earth. And I invited everyone to take a pearl, and I said, only in our minds we can still form this necklace, but there's no Oma to hold us together. So Creatuals are round, they have a beginning and an end, and they are often created for the moment, for the person, for the famous story of two people marrying, where I asked them to blow their yes, their moment of connection, in a glass bulb, the breath of love. It's in their house. They did it at the moment of the yes.
Yeah.
I can tell forever.
Yeah, there is like, lots of beautiful stories, and we will talk about like maybe one or two more, like this Creatuals. But when you are doing that, when you are turning your idea into, let's call it product, like what is your challenge, like the biggest challenge for you as a creative person?
To turn it into a product.
Yeah, you have some idea, you're just collecting everything that you can collect, and then you are turning that into something visible that you need to show to the people and just experience that with the people.
I always look, when I search for an answer to a topic, I look for ingredients. Ingredients, the pearl necklace of my grandmother, in the sense of the transformation with the butterflies. I look for ingredients. For Berlin, they asked me how to connect people in Berlin, and I thought of creating a new souvenir product for Berlin. East-West Berliners, I invited them to talk to each other in the streets and to find common ground, and when they had found something that connected them, I asked them to give each other a handshake, and in this handshake I put a bowl of clay, gray clay, and it formed a hand shape. And this hand shape, many, many thousands of these hand shapes together formed the wall of unification. Now, talking of a product, I can imagine in a souvenir shop, there could be a little box with a bowl of clay with instructions. Go out into Berlin and meet somebody strange and start talking to this person, and invite this person to do the handshake with you, the Berlin handshake. Like in Paris, we hang a little lock on the bridge, right? Maybe here we could. So I do think in products, but it's something, a ritual product, a city ritual product, right?
Yeah, so this is a very famous also ritual, the creative ritual for Berlin. It calls handshape project.
Handshape project.
And it was done for the 30th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it was also a little bit tricky because there was no wall anymore, and Meike created the wall of unification. So people were unified by this piece of clay and the values, the common values, and it was almost 25,000 people, something like that, just like lots of.
10,957 hand shapes, one for each day since the fall of the wall for 30 years.
Yeah.
We have a video.
Yes.
Can we show? Yeah?
Yeah.
There are moments in life when we reach out our hands without wondering whether that person is a friend or a stranger. That is because we are all humans, and fundamentally the same. Handshape is born out of this feeling, out of a longing to build bridges, not borders. We invite people from all walks of life to share their stories, to find common ground, to connect with one another, and to do the Berlin handshape. The result will be more than 10,000 handshapes, one for each day that has passed since the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989. And together they will form the monument to human connection. Through the Berlin handshake, we hope to create awareness, inspire and connect more and more people to build upon a future that values our diversity rather than focusing on our differences. Join us, be part of the Berlin handshape.
Okay, so thank you for this movie. Just like we just right now know a little bit more about this project, but you have methodology behind your creative rituals. So you are creating on your own, but you are also teaching how, like others, how they can implement the creative rituals to their job, to their everyday life. And there is this, I like it, this twist, you know. So what we've seen in this movie, it was this twist, something that we don't expect. It's a little bit like also some students are learning here about the marketing, digital marketing. It's also about this twist, something that catch the eye. So creative rituals are also a little bit about that. So can you talk about this methodology a little bit?
Yeah, I have nice, when I teach, I have some slides. I can't show you now, but there's this method in 5 steps where I say, I look for the ingredients first. There's a task, and I look, what are the main ingredients? And if it's 1 or 2, it's the best, but sometimes I have 3 or 4. And in my teaching, I teach through a methodology how to find these. So first the ingredients, then I create the concept, but that's the framework. Then I ask people to participate, to make the handshake, or to take a pearl from the necklace, or to load the butterfly with their luck. I always ask people to give their input or meaning, and then it becomes a very meaningful product or story. And then everyone thinks this is it, and then comes the twist. The moment I hang these handshapes into a wall of unification, something people don't expect. I have a very interesting story about a guy who died in a motorcycle accident. And his mother called me totally devastated. And the boy was 33, had 2 wonderful girls. And what I did was I said to his mother, bring the 2 tires of the motorbike to the funeral. Tell about his journey of life, because he loved motorbikes and he loved, according to the tires. Ask everyone to write on a small label something that strengthened them or something that they remember of him. And on the coffin are 2 long chains lying, and everyone has tied to one chain their zettel or their little label. And the moment she was ready with her story about him, I asked her to take a piece of chalk and to draw on both tires the line where the wheel stopped, where his life stopped, symbolically. And to take the 2 chains, to hang them around the tires and to hang them in the tree of the garden for the 2 girls to swing on in life. There's the twist. We still see the tires from the motorbike, and suddenly they become swings, toys for the kids. And there you go right through the pain. You go from the negative to the positive. You go from the disaster to something playful. And this is something I think the world needs today, because we're sometimes stuck against this wall and we can't get through to the other side and give things another significance. Yeah. So that's what this work is very important about.
Yeah. So when you are talking about this transformation and change, like I just remind myself another beautiful story. I don't know if everyone knows about that, but there is a concept in Berlin of building the House of One, the house that is connecting the religion that sometimes are in opposition to each other. And Meike was also involved in this project. Can you say something about this House of One and this change that you also find out during this, going through this concept?
I think we need 3 hours today. House of One, yeah, I've so wanted to work for them. I went to them with handshape. It's quite interesting. I went with the handshape story everywhere, and they said, oh, can you create something tailor-made for us? So 3 religions in one house, a church, a synagogue, and a mosque. In the room you come in, the 4th room, is where they meet. I said, House of One. The biggest task of this house is to turn tension, because bring religions together, bring people with different mindsets together, to turn tension to positive intention, or to peaceful intention. So the concept of building this house, because they needed a fundraising story where people were part of, I said, let's take a piece of chalk and write on bricks our peaceful intentions, and let's build the house layered with peaceful intentions from people. And all these peaceful intentions will be in a database, you can read them in. And this first piece of chalk we made with a whole group of young people from different religions who I asked to create these peaceful intentions and to write them on a floor or on a table. And I took the chalk, and from this chalk powder, again of these texts, I created a new piece of chalk. The baton of peace, to pass on and to write on in.
Yeah, it was also very multidimensional, because it was that, but also there were workshops in another place that I can call that it's your personal ritual. Meike created next to Berlin in Mühlenberg. She created the house that is her house, but also it's full of rituals, magic, good intentions, and this place called Dom Wilka. So for me, as a Polish-speaking person, it's meaning a lot, because Dom Wilka means the house of wolves. And Meike can later, if you want, explain why it's the name of that. And it's a beautiful place that also, for you, if you were thinking about some place where you would like to go and do some workshop, meeting, conferences, it's also a place that you can talk with Meike and really enjoy, because it's very special, I would say. And in every single brick, I would say, there is a magic and there is some good intention.
Dom Wilka, yes, it is. I wanted to create this studio where people could come and step into the Creatuals zone, I would say. And the zone gives you inspiration. There's many doors in this house you can pass through, and behind every door there's a story. In the walls things are happening. And we just opened officially in last September to do the workshops, to create an academy, to also get people from outside to do things there in a combination with me or even alone, because the space on its own is magical, absolutely. I will later on show you some images, or welcome all.
Yeah, okay, so but, we are talking about there's lots of stories, lots of ideas is coming from you. It's a little bit draining sometimes, I can imagine. So how you are keeping yourself motivated? Where you are looking for the inspiration for yourself to stay positive and have these brilliant ideas?
Well, I say Creatuals is for me the fuel on which I drive, which my motor runs. If I can't create, it's in me very much. There was a period, this is quite interesting, that I didn't have any projects for a little while, and I said to my husband, he saw me very unhappy, and he said, this colleague of mine from this museum, he needs this and this and this. And I was like, okay. And I started creating. And 2 days later, when I told my husband the great idea, he said, sorry, I made it up. It's not true, but you needed to create. And I thanked him for it. So this shows that I really need these projects to go on.
Perpetuum mobile a little bit,
but it's tiring, also for me, but also for my the people around me, because once I have a good idea and I create it for a client, I'm already with the next, and that's why commercially my work, if you have 3 good ideas and you put it out into the world and you multiply it, you can make business. In this case, it's a bit different. But talking about, it's tiring, but it also gives a lot of energy. And I go into this unconscious world. It's a place where I go, and it's like I worked a lot in dream world, in psychoanalytic dream. Jung, I read a lot about this, but I've also been quite trained in dreams. I can wake up in the morning and I'm still there, and when everyone needs to move away from the house, I'm still like, wait, I still have to catch this thing, and it's something that, so yes, it's tiring.
Yeah, and it's also like I can hear it's a little also like balancing between being artists, so working, you know, with your ideas, but you are working with the clients. Like we are working with the organizations, we are working with the individuals. How you are finding balance and the compromise? Because do you compromise like with your work, or are you listening to your clients, or you're an artist saying, let's do it like that? But trust me, it's going to be well done.
Very, very good question. Well, if I start telling you these stories, quite some people say goosebumps or wow, that's beautiful. For me, it's the art to come to the client with something they don't want to change because it's round and it makes sense. To implement it is a different story, but for me it's very important to understand the client, how far I can go, how provocative I can be, how, if it's for their clients, they have to show the beautiful path. And so the story with Unilever had two sides. It's washing the hands, but also working with soap and making. So I don't say this is how you have to see it. Everyone can interpret it differently. Usually I come with one concept that I feel this is so spot on for this client or for this situation. And sometimes I come with two. And sometimes I come with one concept, small, medium, large, or it depends on for the audience and all. But the idea stays the idea, always.
So I will have like last question to you, just because you are here right now with us, but next week you are traveling to Nigeria, and it's also not only private trip, but it's also the story behind that, and there is a table of hope. So I think a very beautiful story, and from my side it will be the last question about this table of hope, but then the floor is yours, and I will also like have a look if there are some questions from our online viewers.
Table of hope. Tables. I think the table is the most universal object we all know over this whole globe. We eat at it, we play, we talk. Tables. I've done more tables. Table of hope came to my mind when the Chaos Pilot School in Aarhus, I was teaching there, said, can you come with a group of second years to Cape Town and do a Creatual with us? I'm a Dutch person. I traveled the world, but I am a Dutch. And we used to sail around the Cape of Good Hope, a long time ago, to our colonies. And many ships did not make it. How do you say that? They sailed onto the Cape of Good Hope and they never made it anywhere else but there. Of course, there's a guilt in me, but there's also something where I'm like, I would like to give something back, but also it came to mind to get old ship wood, lots of planks, and go into the city of Cape Town, to townships, very poor areas, rich areas, to talk to black, white, old, young, rich, poor, anyone we met in the streets, and to ask them to write their hope. We had long conversations with them. All these Chaos Pilot students talked with them. And then we brought all this wood to one place, to the Statue of Slavery in St. Andrew's Square, and we built a small festival, and we glued all the planks with text written on it together. Here you see women writing. And here you see also writing. And so the idea was we built a tabletop of 4 meters long with all this hope inside. You can't read a word, it's all in there. That's the ritual part. And then I decided to take off a piece of wood and I went to Ghana. And along the Volta River, from village to village, with school children local, we asked people for their hopes and we built a table of hope there. Now Nigeria, many years later, I think I'm also going to Ghana to take the piece of wood from the Ghana table, which is built in a palace of a king. Very interesting. And to build a table in Nigeria. And of course I hope it will go on, because the piece of wood from South Africa is in the table of Ghana, the one from, so it's again passing on the baton to build these tables. Now you still want the story of Gigi or not?
At the end. At the end. So I have a question, like, do you have some questions? Yeah, so if we
have a
microphone. We are waiting for Mike. Thank you.
Hello, thanks for coming here. And I really impressed by your speech. It was very interesting. I don't know why Dutch people are very wise always. I'm always surprised by Dutch people. It's not my first time. Actually, you were talking about the house
of one?
One. And you said you consider three entrance for that one, yes? If I'm not mistaken. For three religions. Yes, three entrance for three religions. If I'm not mistaken, I was in India. I was in the Lotus Temple. And they have something there with the 7 doors for 7 religions. Yes. Maybe. I just want to say, maybe you should increase the number of the entrance, but it's just such my experience. But I have a question. I have another question. For what I understood, usually for your idea and for your creative idea, you need a big number of people. How do you supply it? How do you find it? And what do you think about using influencer to help you to supply this big number of the people for your idea? Thank you so much. My question was clear?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay,
so one
so
is, how do I get the people to create the team to create the project, right?
Yes.
And the other one is how to reach a big audience, right? Yeah. Very good question. I must say I live very much in my own bubble. I'm very good at doing this, but to reach out, like social media, I'm not so good at. I have a website and all, but
for our students, like I'm just
I need that. And I would love to speak much more like this, because I know people like it and this interaction. I'm usually not like to sit here. I'd like to sit amongst you in a circle and but. Example, I did a project in Flevoland, which is in Holland. We have lots of water. And the biggest lake, they created land. And they asked me, a museum that's starting up, an immersive museum, art for a broad amount of people. They asked me, according to the handshape project, which was a famous story, in a simple idea with a big impact. That's what they called the handshape, because we reached a lot of people. And it was financed by Visit Berlin, and I had a lot of people for handshape. In Flevoland, the idea was, what is the soul of this new land? Holland is ancient, old, but this new land has no soul. I said it's in the dried water underneath the land and in the hearts of the people that went there. And I created a brunne, like a spring or a fountain that pulses the heartbeats of the people. So this was a plan, they loved it, and then we had to reach out to get the connectors, the people who walk around the city, to ask you what makes your heart beat faster, and to send it to the fountain so it bounces or it pulses your heartbeat. So in no time, this was over social media, we reached out and we got a whole group of people to participate for 2 months and we had a whole system for people going into the streets, and they did the communication and so all that is outside of my league there. So,
but also, just if I can add something, there are very huge rituals, like for thousands of people, but also during pandemic, Meike had to change a little bit the tool of communication because we were all sitting at home, nobody could go out. And Meike designed this ritual that actually it was the first one that I took part in. It was Avocado Challenge, and there were only 4 people. Meike was sitting at home and asked, 4 people sitting somewhere in the world. One woman was in Brazil, one in Hamburg.
Online, yeah.
Yes, I was in Berlin, and we were going through that. And another ritual that I just remind myself that was also brilliant. Also during the pandemic, also we were stuck in our places, and we depending only on our eyes and the visions. So Meike
mixed experience?
Mixed experience, yes. Yeah. So we were sitting at homes and we were doing the drinks together.
Creating cocktails.
Creating cocktails, and I've done it for my project for the people who were working for the ports, so engineers, port managers. And by participating in this ritual, like we are biting into the ginger, like we were tasting the lemon. We are putting a little bit of sugar. This one, like connecting through the senses, we were talking about our feelings and how we are dealing with this isolation. Yes, funny moments, what we learned. It was very beautiful, and for me, again, surprise, these engineers, port people, they start talking about themselves. And what I like, like from my perspective about these rituals, these creative rituals, that very quickly, people who meet for the first time, they are going from the small talk about the weather, like about, what is in politics, to very deep emotional talks. It's just going like that, from one second to another, people are very open and talking about themselves. And also, Meike creates some kind of zone that people feel that it's a trust zone. So we can talk deeply, nobody judge, nobody is giving you any comment to that. You can feel how you feel in this moment. So it's also very beautiful about that.
Yeah.
Svetlana, you are holding the microphone.
Actually, first of all, thank you very much for sharing with us, because we are trying to integrate creativity into every academic discipline today. And since you heard Meike's story today, dear students, please don't come up to me with the questions how to find a job in Berlin. Just be creative, and it's unlimited opportunities, as we see. Yes, you just have to be creative. However, there is something that really doesn't work in the world these days, and this is diplomacy. No matter how many efforts people in different countries do, it doesn't work. Do you believe creativity has to be integrated into diplomatic studies, into political studies, into different kinds of, communication on a top level? And would you take a role of somebody who will teach the world how to do it, or maybe show an example, lead by example?
Very good question. It's interesting. Yesterday I gave a presentation to the Falling Walls Foundation. I don't know if you heard about them, but they're very scientific, but also political. And the concept I am bringing out now, and it was a secret, but now not anymore, because people know about it, is the next 35 years fall of the Berlin Wall. And as today we are more and more growing distant from one another in politics, in religion, and look at the world today. My new idea is that Berlin, with the pieces of wall that, they're L-form wall pieces, and there used to be 2 walls, to put them in Berlin and to let them fall to table. So the division to discussion, or to conversation, and to bring Ukrainians and Russians at the table, of people who don't talk because of political reasons, or because of what, to to really invite those at the table for. So yes, I believe that this work and these concepts can definitely, because they are so universal, the objects, we all know them. And I like to fool a little bit in my work, that we think we're going this direction, but hey, maybe that could work also. Again, it's the zone. It's not, there's no right or wrong. But yes, I think it's extremely important to bring this kind of work, creative work, to up there. Let's put it that way. Yes.
And also, just to mention, a few weeks before the war started in Ukraine, Meike and I, we were in Estonia, in Narva, where 100% of people living there are Russian, and there is a huge conflict between Estonian and Russian population. And we were invited, mostly Meike was assisting there, to also build the bridge and understanding. And as I said, conflicts are, there are very many reasons, but one of the reason of the conflict is lack of understanding, lack of communication, not willingness of talking about the things. And these people from Estonia and from Russia, Russian minority, they were together in the room, and because of this twisting what Meike has done, a little bit of workshop, a little bit of putting them in this creative zone, they start talking about themselves, and they start talking about their needs and how they feel about each other. So we've done, a little bit of work like that, and I think that also our idea is to continue the subject. Of course, we will not change the politics, we will not change diplomacy, but giving them a little bit of this twist and understanding, I think it's needed, and it's very powerful and helpful. Also, there's another story about the Darwin project that Meike was also working with. It's like bringing people together, people who would never ever talk with each other from different sectors, different backgrounds, different point of view. I mean, we have so many things in common. And this is what I'm also thinking, that Creatuals can work on the values, because the values are the same. And a beautiful story about coming back to the house of one, young people who were coming from the different background, from the different religion, they met in Dom Wilka, and they start speaking with each other because Meike put them in this context of Catholics, Muslims, Jewish, people who doesn't have any religion, and they start talking about different things with each other, and they just turns out, hey, we are the same. We are the same people. We are having the same value. We are afraid of the same things. We have the same hope. And they were sharing with each other and said, okay, religion divides us, but we are human beings. And this is what the Creatuals, I believe, is bringing mostly to our lives, on the different levels. Guys, do you have any more questions? We talked a lot. So I think that, thank you very much, Meike. Before we finish, this 5 minutes to wrap up, there is this beautiful story. I love this story. Ritual with Gigi. If you can just, for the goodbye, say this story, I would be very thankful.
Gigi. The Table of Hope in South Africa. I went back to, it's in the Museum of District 6. I went back a year later, and we did a beautiful dinner at this table. A lot of people came, they all brought food, and we connected beautifully. And then there was a lot of food left. And the curator, Tina, she said to me, around the corner there's an orphanage, a young girls' orphanage. Let's bring the food there. So we went with these big dishes, me and an assistant and Tina, to this orphanage, and it was this huge building with this big iron gate, and this big mama opened the door, and I was led to the kitchen. But in the courtyard there were these young girls screaming and like animals. It was like, oh. So we left the food in the kitchen, and I was looking at the girls and walked out, and then I said to this beautiful big mama, can I come back tomorrow and give them a Creatual workshop? She's like, no, ma'am, we don't do these things here. What is that? I said, well, it's about rituals. And she gave me the card of the director of the orphanage, and I mailed him, and he said, well, there's a whole list of rules. You cannot ask about their past, you cannot touch them, you cannot. I said, fine. So the next day I walk in like a Mary Poppins with 2 big bags of creative papers and markers and paints and whatever, and the little booklets I had bought for them. So here's 20 young girls sitting, and I tell about my work, and they were like, wow, creative rituals, wow. And I said, you're going to design your own. Here's a booklet, and write your favorite, your name, your favorite color, your favorite television program, your food, you, who are you, what is your identity? So they did that. And then I asked them, what do you want to design a ritual for? So either in pairs of 2 or alone. And the girls were busy, and there was one girl in the corner banging her head against the wall. She had a big wound, bleeding, and she couldn't participate. She was angry. She was everything but, how would you say, in her element or herself. So I walked there, and she had this booklet, and she threw it to the other side of the room and said, read. So I went there, and there was written Gigi, favorite color orange, and she had done that. And then she showed me her paper, because everyone had a piece of paper, where they had drawn their ritual. And I hadn't seen her, but she had created a globe, the world, the globe, water in blue, land in green. She had drawn it, and she showed me. And in the water was written about 50 times the word love. And I was like, wow, Gigi, what's this? She said, I hate everyone. They killed my brother in front of me. My father left me. My mom, I don't know. And she threw out the whole story, and devastated, angry, every emotion you can think of, she had it. And she was crying, and she said, I have so little love left. But you know, doesn't water go all around the world? And I said, yes. I said, if I could squeeze out this last love and give it to the water, it will go all around the world. I said, Gigi, fantastic. Let's do it. And she's like, I can't, I don't know. So I went to the kitchen, and this big mama was sitting, and was like, oh, what are you doing? And I found a piece of Tupperware and a blue marker and a bottle of water. I said, now Gigi, you're going to squeeze out this love with all your whole being and mind and soul, and write this on the Tupperware and wash it, the love, words of love, hearts, whatever, into this bottle of water. And we together go to the seaside, which is 100 meters from there, and we pour it in the sea, and it'll go all around the world. The smile on her face, her whole being changed. It looked like the wound went, but it didn't. But and she was for 1.5 hours in a corner doing this. And at some point she comes to me with a hand in front of her mouth and the bottle, blue as can be. And she said, was that a permanent marker? She had painted her lips blue, big smile. And she said, we're going to go to the sea with this. And all the other girls were like, they hadn't seen her like this. And then she said, no, I want to go next week when my brother comes, and I'm going to sleep with this bottle next to my bed. But first I need some love back. And she took a piece of some water back, and yeah, I cried. It was amazing what she came up with. And also I told the girls, if you're in front of a wall, if you don't know what to do, you can think so symbolically, you have fantasy, you're creative. Pick up some pieces that you find on the ground, a rock or a piece of a cigarette, and you can design something to walk right through that wall. And that's what I'm trying to teach people. It can be sometimes so simple, but you have to see it. And we can all see it, but I must say, look deep inside yourself where there's a moment that you were really lost in life, or where you really didn't know what happened with you there, and what path could you have created for yourself to walk, maybe not around, more through it, but this is where it happened for me. Those moments in my life, I had to be creative, and I figured a way out. And you can all do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So just, like to finalize, we have one person most likely watching us from Nigeria and is offering you, Korede is offering you documenting your trip in Nigeria. So Korede, we will contact you. Thank you very much. And Meike will, if she of course will, she will give you some details and we can arrange meeting in Nigeria and you have a guide there.
Wonderful. Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.